Hey everyone, welcome back to Z Business Solutions YouTube channel. Today we are going to go over the uh, Bootstrap grid system as well as the Bootstrap cards. And in order to understand how the cards react when you scale down the browser window, and it gives you the different types of responsiveness, you need to understand the grid system. So let's go ahead and go over to the Bootstrap website, and I went into the layout portion into the grid, and we can go ahead and take a look at what the grid system is. So what the grid system is it's basically a 12-column system here, and it says right here in the description, it's a 12-column system where Bootstrap divides the browser window into 12 separate columns that become responsive, and in these 12 columns you can set breakpoints to where you want the responsive nature of Bootstrap to take place. So if we go back to our Bootstrap tutorial, and if you notice once we start scrolling down, the cards become a little smaller, they become more responsive, all the content keeps stacking on top of each other all the way until you hit the mobile window, and then they stack perfectly right on top of each other. So this is exactly what it would look like in a mobile device. And then if you get to about here, this is probably about a small, like a tablet, and then you get about here, this is more like a laptop type of window, and then this would be more of your desktop type window. So inside the grid, inside those 12 columns, you can break them up evenly. And so what a container does, if you put a div with a class of container over it, it breaks it up into an even amount of those columns. And inside that container, if you just, like in this instance, put a call of small, basically what it will do is it will keep each of those columns divvied up by 4 columns each, and they will all be of equal size until it reaches that small breakpoint where they will start stacking on top of each other. A better illustration of where the small, medium, and large, which would be represented here, of the different breakpoints, is down here in the grid options, and it tells you right here. So they have an extra small, which you really don't need to use. As long as you use a small breakpoint, anything underneath that will just become a total number of 12 columns wide and will fill up the entire screen. So at 540 pixels is where the call, medium, small breakpoint starts. At 720 is where the medium breakpoint starts. At 960 is where the large, and then at extra large, and this would be like for your large screens, your large desktop screens, would be where the breakpoint for this starts. So you can start the responsiveness and decide what your content does based on these different breakpoints here in the Bootstrap grid system. So if we go back over to our HTML that we were working on last time, and we have all of our different cards here, and in here what we'll do first is we're going to come back to our CSS and remember how we did 40 pixels for the left and right margin, so that way we can kind of give it a little bit more of if we go back a little bit more margin between the left and right borders of the window. We'll go ahead and take those away. We'll just do that as a 0, and then we will do, and we can get rid of the pixel portion, and we'll do a 0 over here, and we'll just leave the 40 pixels in the bottom. We'll leave that as the way it is. We'll come back over to HTML, and right above card deck here, we're going to go ahead and enter in a div. And we're going to give this div a class of container. And then we'll take the closing div tag, we'll cut that, and we will put that at the end of our first set of card decks right down here. And we'll go ahead and save that, and we'll come back over to the Surf Shop. And if we go ahead and refresh, you'll see that the container now gives you a nice containable section where all of your cards live. It is still fully responsible, and that by default it goes with those default responsiveness that we saw by the different pixels in the grid system documentation, and then we can adjust from there. And then you'll see below, this is basically the card deck that is taking up the entire width of the screen. So depending on what you're doing, you might want to have this entire width of the screen, or you might want to have it in a container like so. We're going to go ahead, or we're going to keep it in a container, and then we're going to leave these bottom ones without a container. So let's go ahead and go back into the Bootstrap, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the components and go back to our cards. And let's go through cards really quick and just what the cards are all about. So each card is made up of this image top portion here. You have a card title, and then you have some different content that you can put underneath the card title. Now you can leave it to where there's just an image here, and then have the cards in different, just going across the screen. Or you can put different things in here. So these cards could be used for things like listing out a bunch of items that you have for sale, and you can put buttons in here on what you want to do with them, whether you want to have them to, this button could be like buy or add to cart, or buy now kind of thing. The title could be, this could just be the title of the item, and then this could be basically a little quick description of what it is. You can also use these cards on the front page of your landing page, just as link buttons, basically, to where the card becomes a link to the pages that you want to take the person to. So coming down here, so you have the different dimensions here, like for the card. In this instance, it's just got a div of class of card, and here's your image with the source and the class of card image top, which gives you the image at the top of the card, and then the card body gives you this basically section here where you can enter in a card title, card text, or a link with, for that button to do something, or you can even wrap the entire card in a link so it goes out somewhere. So no matter where they are moving on the card, you can click on it and it will take you somewhere. So if we come in here to the card body, you can do a bunch of different things. You can have a card title, a subtitle, different links on here, a little paragraph that talks about the card, which would be the card text. And then same thing with images here. You can do things with your images. You can even come over here and create a list where you have a card with a list group, and you just have a different list of cards in here. This is basically, they call this the kitchen sink. So this is all the different things that you can add in here, where you have a card with a body, with some text, and then with a list of different things inside of that card as well. And then you have links right there on the bottom in a separate card body. So you notice how every time you do a card body, it gives you a little line here and it breaks it out, so that way it kind of is like a little divider for each of the different things. Another thing you could do is you can add a header or footer. Instead of having an image, this could just be like a descriptor of the card. This is something great for if you're having like comments or reviews. You can use something like this with a header or a footer that tells you basically, it could be like the person that wrote it, and then the title of what they wrote, and then all the content of what they're talking about. If we keep scrolling down, this talks about a little bit more about how to use the grid, and you can even put your cards in different rows and columns to have them take up. So this one here is basically showing the cards in a div with a class of row, and then each so it's going to put each of the cards in a row, and it's going to split them out by the columns size here. So this is saying at the small size, we're going to take each of the columns at size of 6. So they're going to fill up 6 columns evenly throughout the page until it reaches the small size where it will stack on top of each other. Using utilities down here, so you can basically set the card's width and height dynamically by using the different utilities of like either width or height or anything like that inside of the utilities options of Bootstrap. And then text alignment, you can always use your text align classes like text center and all that. So that way you can align your text within the card however you wish. Navigation, gives you a navigation tab, so you can have a card such as this to where you can have a little navigation bar on top that shows you kind of where you are inside the card. Another thing with your images is that you can decide where you want your image to be placed, either on the top or the bottom, by adding in the image with the source just differently within your card. So if you want it at the top, you'll add your image towards the top of that div, and on the bottom, you'd add it towards the bottom of that div. Image overlays, you could basically have the card with card image on in here with the card title and everything talking about the card right over the top of it. You can have a horizontal image where you put the image to the right or even to the left, depending on how you want to have it. And this is basically utilizing the same column grid system that we were talking about earlier. So this has a column medium of 4, and this has a column medium of 8. So this is setting with inside the container. This is going to set the card to have to take up four columns within this section, and then the card body is going to take up 8 of those columns. Background styles. You can do different background styles, different background colors, depending on your liking, if you would like to. And then if you come down here a little further, you can also add a border to your card, and then as well as you can take away the borders as well. And then you can use the card layout portion like we have done, where you can create a group of cards together, or you can create a deck, which gives you basically the spacing in between each card. So that is basically the cards system. If we come back into our cards, what we're going to do is, so let's go back to our site here and let's take a look at our cards. And so the first top 3 cards here is we're going to make these our shop cards, and then below these will just be some images. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to switch this picture with this one here, and we're going to go ahead to our first section of cards here on line 74. I'm going to go ahead and take this picture here, and I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to come up to the front one here. I'm just going to bring that URL down 1, paste that one in, and then I'm going to cut out the bottom URL here, and then bring that back up by just hitting a couple backspaces. And then I'm going to come down here to that bottom one, and I'm just switching these images around. You'll see why here in a second. So the first card title that we're going to use is we're going to call this one Surfboards. And then we don't need the small paragraph portion here. We can go ahead and delete that. But we're going to use that first paragraph, and we're going to put a little subheading of find great deals on our boards. Okay, we'll save that. We'll come back over, and nice, quick, and easy. We just redo a quick refresh, and there it is. Find great deals on our boards. Nice and simple to read. And this could become a link that will take us in our shop all the way to our boards section. So we have a nice, beautiful image right on top of here, and we'll create this as a link later. Next is this card title here. We're going to go ahead and update these. And you'll notice that because this whole container, this section here is a little bit longer, the whole entire container is now filling up that portion. So you do have some of that dead space here because of the amount of text that is inside this card. And you'll see dynamically, once we enter in the new stuff for the other cards, it will go ahead and dynamically shrink. So it'll fit that as well. The next ones we're going to do is wetsuits. And then we'll put in here, go ahead and put get your new wetsuit today, and then below that we will take out this paragraph, and then the last one we're going to do accessories, and then we'll get rid of this paragraph down here, and then here we will go ahead and put in shop accessories. Save it, come back over, And we'll do a quick refresh, and there it is. Nice. And then you see how it responsively went ahead and made everything the same size. And now below here, we'll keep these photos, but we're just going to make them photos. We're not going to have anything underneath them. So in order to do that, just to show you how we can just have an image in this card section, we're just going to go to this card deck here, and we're going to take the card body all the way up to the image and delete it. Same thing for the other two. So we'll take this div here to the card body, delete it, bring that up, slide this over one more time, and there we go. So we come back over, go a refresh, and there it is. Some of these images are taking up the entire portion, some of them aren't. In order to fix this portion here, in order to get these guys to be the same height and width, let's go ahead and go back to our HTML, and we're going to go ahead and give this div here a ID of card images, and then let's go to our CSS real quick. We're going to go ahead and find card images, and we're going to get the image portion of that div, and we're going to set the width to 100% and the height to 100%, and that will fix them all up so they're all now the same width and height. Okay guys, so that is it for today's tutorial on the Bootstrap cards and the grid system. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please like and subscribe so that you will not miss any of the further Bootstrap videos. Next week we will be going over creating the different pages and adding in some other Bootstrap components to make this serve site a little more unique and dynamic. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.